Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I decided to make another video. So this video is a little bit different than some of my more recent ones. I've been doing a lot of lists and whatnot, and I wanted to take an opportunity to just talk about what I've been reading lately. And this isn't even a wrap up because I'm only gonna be talking about one book today, and it is the silliest book I have ever read in my life. Also, I've been standing for a lot of my recent videos and it's fun, but I move around a lot when I stand and I'm not sure if I do that. Apparently I move around a lot while I sit down too, so maybe nothing will change. I don't know, I'm just trying sitting down. How innovative. And I've chosen the word silly very specifically. I'm not saying this book is bad. I'm not saying this book is poorly written. I'm not saying you shouldn't read this book. I just want you to know that The Builders by Daniel Polansky is silly. Okay, where do I even start with talking about The Builders? I first saw this book on Instagram. I don't remember where, but it was like a one-off post someone made about how they like this book, and I've never seen anyone post about it otherwise. I've obviously heard of Daniel Polansky. He's written a number of fairly well-known stories, including Straight Razor Cure, I think is his biggest trilogy. I haven't read it. This is actually my first Daniel Polansky, but I decided to give it a read, and then shortly after that, Angry Robot, the publisher, sent me an arc of his new book that's coming out in February. So it was like, okay, now I really want to read this one so that I've got some Daniel Polansky under my belt before I get into this arc. There's a quote right on the front here from Delilah S. Dawson, who I'm honestly not sure who that is. This is who that is. She says that this book is as unforgiving as a runaway train carrying all your friends over a cliff. I haven't cared about animals this much since Watership Down. Now, I have not read Watership Down. I obviously vaguely know it's rabbits fighting battles. An animal-based story that's very emotional and violent. I've also heard this being compared to Redwall, which is a children's series. So it's like Redwall, but for adults. And I was like, okay, so based on those comparisons, there's gotta be some whimsy, some lessons, some unique uses of, you know, animals as the main characters versus humans. And then this will all be apparent in this book, The Builders. I was wrong. Oh my goodness. This book. So basically The Builders is a getting the gang back together story. It's a bunch of retired mercenaries, I guess, or I would say rebels. They're a bunch of retired rebels whose last job did not end well, and they stopped being a group together. A couple of them are injured. They're all like in a bad place. But the captain, who's just named the captain and is this mouse on the front, wants to get the gang back together and go do one more tribe, overthrowing the king. I honestly don't even remember. King, Emperor, something? The Younger. It's called The Younger, and he's a toad. Anyways, not important right now. So the first many chapters of this book is just the captain going to all 9 members of his company and getting them back together through various ways. And that's like half the book. And I don't mind that. It was fun meeting all of his little animal buddies, but it was a solid half of the book was that before anything else happened. I would say that unfortunately, if I were to sum this book up in one sentence, it would be a subpar, you know, getting the band back together, Western fantasy adventure, but make it animals. If this was just a story about people, DNF. Would not have finished it, wouldn't have enjoyed it. The fact that they're animals added something cute and silly that I did like, because there was some cute silliness in this. Anyways, I feel like I'm ranting a little bit. I do have a format that I want this video to be, and I wrote it out, and now I'm off script. So even though everything I've said so far sounds like on the negative side, for some reason, I could not stop reading this. There's an author's note from Daniel Polansky right in the back here that kind of explains what the heck is going on here. He says, The Builders has a special place in my heart, being essentially a one-note joke that remains funny for me 5 odd years after I came up with it. Thanks to you, the reader, for indulging my adolescent sensibilities. I don't know what the specific joke was, but I do think that that explains everything about this book. Daniel Polansky's not taking this seriously, and then neither should we, the readers. Once you stop taking books so seriously, you can start to enjoy them more. And that's what I feel about this. Let's talk about the things that I liked about The Builders. 1, short chapters. Super stupid short chapters. Some of them are 1 sentence long. And that made it really easy to read. Even the parts where I was like, man, this makes no sense, and this is just like getting out of hand, and then the chapter would end. and I'm like, okay, I can keep reading. So like, for example, this is an entire chapter right here. I also would say that while I think the plotting and the story is subpar, the writing itself, the prose, is really well done. I'm looking forward to reading more from Daniel Polansky because I did enjoy his writing style, just not necessarily the story that unfolded here. And I did really enjoy a lot of the characters. Somehow, this book both had some interesting feminism choices. That being said, my favorite characters in this book were all women. Ladies. There's a lady owl, there's a lady possum, and a lady mole that I think are actually really excellently written. They were some of the more in-depth characters, especially Elf, the owl. I adored her. I also bought this book because the cover artist is Richard Anderson, who is my favorite cover artist, so that definitely did lend to why I bought it. But then we get to my criticisms of the book, and the list is significantly longer. First, I kind of just mentioned this a little bit, but the sexual nature of this book is extremely off-putting. There's nothing graphic or like grotesque. It's not smut or anything, but it does reference sexual relationships between different species of animals that like, the owl used to date a snake and they were referred to as lovers many times, and I just don't understand anatomically how that works, and I don't want to, but it got me thinking about it. So this is really more of a me problem where now I'm imagining owl snake sex rather than Daniel Polansky actually writing it. But there are like sexual references throughout the story, like references to buggery and sodomy when discussing a cat's personality. I don't want to know about that. I know that this book is for adults, but this is what I'm saying about how it's just a regular human story but make them animals. Anyways, that is the least of my problems with this book. One of the bigger things is that it is very short, and yes, it's a novella, it's allowed to be short, but instead of the world building and character building coming off as intentionally vague, it does read more like Daniel Polansky just didn't feel like figuring things out, so he just kept everything a mystery. Like, this is their second time around of this rebellion. We know nothing about the first time around. We don't know why these characters are on the side that they've chosen. I don't know. We don't know. We know nothing. And along with that is the physical world building. This takes place definitely on Earth. There are direct references to places like Mexico and Paris and Poughkeepsie, and like the animals are living there in those countries and cities. It's not like there's a human world and then these animals have their own little world within it. I'm pretty sure there are no people and animals are there in those places. One of the characters is specifically French. But then this whole story takes place in a place called the Gardens, which is never put somewhere specifically on Earth. It's just the Gardens. Is that the world? Is that England? Because this is vaguely English. Although he's not English. He lives in Baltimore. I don't know. Maybe it's America. So it's like, yeah, we have this real world. Characters have traveled to real Earth places, but then the story itself takes place in the Gardens. There are no clues as to the scale of the Gardens. Like, I don't know, is this a country? Is this a continent? Is this what they call Earth? Is everything the Gardens? I also take issue with stereotyping in this book. Two different kinds, specifically. One is using stereotypes to create lazy characters. The biggest example is the stoat, bonsoir, which means good night in French. He is called the Frenchman a lot, and he has a French accent, and he wears a beret, and he like smokes a cigarette constantly, and it's just so French. And along with that, we have a lot of just characters whose names are their animal. So there's a cat named Puss, because he's a cat, I guess. And while stereotyping things like French people, I know media has decided that's okay. Something that actually bothers me though, and this is gonna be a weird hill to die on, but I am an animal lover. All animals, I love them, every single one. Name an animal, I love it. Daniel Polansky chooses to make 100% of the characters in this book represented by the human perceptions of that animal. So while this is a story where there are definitely no good guys and bad guys necessarily, it's all gray. Every time he introduces a new character, we know what animal they are, that's the first thing. And then we talk about how, due to the nature of that animal, they are evil. So like stoats and weasels and foxes are described as being sneaky and murderous because everyone knows that they are violent, vicious, horrible animals. And then we've got rats and skunks and badgers described as pests and annoying and like thieves, essentially. The snakes being dangerous and owls being dangerous, and I hate that because that is so harmful to animals. It talks about possums being disgusting and diseased. They're not. They're so not. All animals deserve to live. This is turning into a PETA video, okay? I know it's fiction and he can do whatever he wants, but it bothers me so much that he's like, yes, and the weasel character, everyone knows weasels are gross and sneaky and like they deserve to die because of that. A lot of animals get a bad rap because of their nonsense reputations and are exterminated for those reasons. And I am not okay with that. And I don't appreciate Daniel Polansky perpetuating harmful stereotypes about skunks, etc. Okay, I have one more thing to say. Why are we body shaming guinea pigs and other chonky animals? Daniel Polansky got to create an entire world here, and he could have just not had the scene where the captain, who is a mouse, like has to shut down a guinea pig prostitute. The mouse is in a bar and a hooker walks up to him. Not interested, he said flatly. She smiled. She was pretty for a guinea pig, if you didn't mind them heavy. If you did mind them heavy, you probably wouldn't go for a guinea pig. Why? Stop it! I'm sure she was beautiful. I just don't get it. Like, we're already doing all this interspecies relationship stuff, but now we have to fat shame guinea pigs. Ugh, gross. Okay, let me wrap this up because I've been talking for 20 minutes about this book. I was highly compelled to finish it. I was thoroughly entertained. Maybe a lot of the entertainment came from it being so nonsensical and chaotic and silly and me just needing to know what was gonna happen next because it was crazy. I did really like the fast pacing, loved the fast pacing. The prose itself, pretty good. A lot of the characters were fun. A lot of the characters I also really didn't like, so that was like a mixed bag on characters. I would say if you want a fun, short, weird, silly read, pick this one up. There's something just intangible about it. I just had fun reading it. I really did. Overall, this is like 3.2 stars for me because I didn't think the story was incredible and for all of the other reasons that I already said, but I still think it's worth a go if you are a fan of Redwall, if you're a fan of Warriors Cats, if you're a fan of Watership Down, but now you're an adult and you're just missing the nostalgia of reading a book where animals are the main characters, but you don't want to read an actual children's book, you can read The Builders. They have guns. I would love to know more about the actual world, but we're never gonna know that because, as Daniel Polansky said it himself, this book is a joke. Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I upload 2 days a week. I love you guys. Goodbye.